Have you ever found an old thing that changed your view of someone you thought you knew? A faded autumn morning draped the quiet suburban town in a muted palette of golds and grays. The sun filtered weakly through rustling amber leaves, casting transient shadows over cracked sidewalks and weathered brick facades. Max trod slowly along the narrow street, his heavy paws stirring a carpet of brittle leaves, the soft sound muffled beneath his weariness. His golden fur, dulled by years and weather, caught little of the light of faded glow, betraying a past now lost to memory. The worn red collar around his neck, once vibrant and proud, sagged lazily against his broad chest, shaded by tufts of fur turned silver with age. Its countless scratches and faded inscriptions were silent testimonies to times when Max had been a hero's trusted protector, a guardian whose very name inspired warmth and gratitude. But now, those days were whispers on the wind. The town streets, once buzzing with admiration, offered only averted eyes and hurried steps. Children who once kneeled to pat his head now crossed over to avoid his gaze. Adults who once smiled and invited leaned away with practiced indifference. The invisible veil of neglect had settled around him, heavy and unyielding. Max's slow gait faltered as he neared the community hospital, a large, aging building draped in ivy and shadow, marked by peeling paint and the clatter of distant machines within. His paws hesitated on the threshold, the familiar mix of sterile scent and faint antiseptic evaporating memories of valor and purpose. The sharp clatter of a nurse's trolley and the low murmur of voices through a nearby window broke the stillness. Inside, a group of caretakers clustered in a sunlit hallway paused mid-conversation as Max shuffled into view. Their eyes darted downward, then to each other, faces tightening with suppressed annoyance more than recognition. "Not again," muttered one. "He's been restless lately," whispered another, eyeing the red collar with dull disregard. Max lowered his head, tail tucked close, the weight of invisibility crushing his spirit. He approached cautiously, hopeful for a moment of kindness, a gentle word, a touch of acknowledgement, anything to remind him he still belonged. A nurse stepped forward, clipboard in hand, eyes hard beneath a creased brow. "Max, come here," she commanded, voice clipped, lacking warmth. Her tone left no room for comfort, only obligation. Max obeyed reluctantly, feet slow as the shadow of rejection stretched around him. As she dismissed him with a curt wave, her colleagues exchanged quiet glances, their silence louder than any condemnation. Outside the bright window of the patient's room, sunlight streamed in a golden stream, untouched by the gloom shadowing Max. Yet the light seemed unreachable, a silent symbol of hope and forgotten valor. Max's somber eyes traced the glinting sunbeams, a subtle flicker of old courage stirring beneath the veil of melancholy. His breath came slow and steady, a quiet hum in the vast silence of neglect. A sudden soft thud echoed behind a dusty diary slipping from a high shelf, pages fluttering open as if beckoning. Max's ears twitched, the sound stirred something deep within. He patted over, nose nudging the fragile book closer, a worn, tattered diary that whispered of lost stories, hidden memories, a past waiting to be reclaimed. The hallway's quiet held its breath, the moment suspended between forgotten past and the fragile promise of rediscovery. And in Max's tired eyes, a spark kindled, a silent vow to rise from the shadows, to seek the light long lost but never truly extinguished. The soft buzz of activity within the bustling nursing home faded around Max as he trailed behind the fading footsteps of the caretaker. His aged joints creaked softly, a muted echo of a strength long since dimmed but never fully extinguished. The worn red collar around his neck glinted faintly beneath the warm glow of the overhead lights, a mute testament to days when his valor shone bright, days now bowed beneath the heavy silence of solitude. In the quiet corners of the hospital halls, Max moved with a measured gait, each step laden with the weight of memories and obscured glory. The faces that had once looked upon him with reverence were now shadows, passing glances of indifference or polite avoidance. The laughter and cheers of gratitude had been replaced by hushed whispers and averted eyes. His amber coat, once lustrous, now bore the signs of time, dulled by the relentless march of years and neglect. Yet within those soulful, somber eyes lingered a stubborn flame of identity desperately clinging to the edges of obscurity. Max paused beside a sunlit window framing a hospital room bathed in gentle, golden hues. Outside, the desolate garden stretched in muted greens and browns, a reflection of the fading vibrancy nestled inside him. His gaze lifted to the windowpane, where sunlight spilled like liquid hope, tracing patterns on the worn floor that danced fleetingly beneath his paws. The murmurs of attentive nurses drifted from the adjoining rooms, voices filled with care but tinged with the clinical detachment of routine. Max's breath caught, a low, mournful sigh slipping through his whiskers as he lowered his head to the ground, the silence pressing heavy upon his heart. An old diary lay forgotten in the shadowed recess of a nearby shelf, its tattered pages fluttering gently, displaced by the breeze from an open door. The fragile flutter was irresolute yet persistent, the whisper of forgotten stories aching to be heard. Drawn by an invisible thread, Max approached cautiously, his nose nudging the worn cover. His jaws closed gently around the spine, lifting the diary with reverence born of long-lost purpose. His eyes scanned the room quickly. The presence of unseen observers held the moment in fragile suspension. With careful, deliberate steps, Max carried the diary away, retreating into the sanctuary of quieter corridors, navigating the hospital's maze with an instinct honed by years of duty and longing. Each movement was a silent assertion of existential defiance against the encroaching shadows of irrelevance. In the distant sunlit window, the golden streaks deepened, a silent herald of change brewing beyond the old hospital's walls. For Max, the diary was more than a collection of faded pages, it was a bridge to a past brimming with honor and a beacon toward a future reclaimed. As he paused in the quiet solitude, Max's eyes reflected the warm light of flicker of hope in the stillness, a quiet promise that his story was far from over. And somewhere within the gentle pulse of the fading day, an untold chapter awaited, poised delicately between loss and redemption. The fading afternoon light poured softly through the hospital's high windows, casting long streams of golden warmth across the linoleum floor where Max sat, head lowered but eyes slowly lifting as the last of the day's visitors shuffled away. The old red collar around his neck caught the light one last time, a symbol dulled by years yet unbroken in spirit. He remained still, the quiet pulse of the hospital around him a muted rhythm against his own restless heartbeat. The weight of invisibility clung to him, like the dust settling thick across forgotten shelves. His paws itched to move, to rise beyond the silence and shadow, but hesitation rooted him firmly to his spot. Then, without warning, a sudden clatter rang out, a book tumbling from a high shelf, its pages unfolding with a fluttering desperation. The diary lay sprawled on the floor, worn and tattered, its edges stained with the passage of time. Max's ears pricked, a flicker of recognition igniting in his somber gaze. With a careful sniff, he nudged the diary open, those fragile pages whispering secrets too long hidden. His nose traced the fading script words woven with memories, valor, and loss. Each letter breathed life back into a past nearly erased, rekindling embers beneath the surface of forgotten stories. The room seemed to pulse with a new breath, the sunlight streaming fuller, warmer now. Max's old memories stirred not as shadows but as seeds of something fragile and profound. The diary was a beacon across the fog of time, a call to awaken. The soft rustle of approaching footsteps startled Max into motion. Clutching the diary gently in his jaws, he turned and padded swiftly down the hall, his gait unsteady but purposeful. Despite the scolding voices trailing behind him, Max pressed forward, fleeing the narrow confines of neglect toward something undefined yet vital. Sunlight spilled through a nearby window, bathing him in a golden halo, a promise that redemption and recognition remained within reach, even as the world around him moved on in quiet disregard. His eyes, once clouded and heavy, now shimmered with a tentative clarity. The weight of those worn pages pressed lightly against his chest, a tether to truth and to the possibility of belonging once more. And as Max disappeared around the corner, the diary's pages whispered in the breeze, stories yearning to be told, waiting to bridge the past and the present. In that luminous moment, hope flickered, small yet resolute, a spark destined to grow amidst the shadows. The morning light seeped softly through the hospital window, spilling warm, golden hues across the quiet room where Max rested on the worn carpet. His curled-up form rose slightly as the sun's rays brushed his fur, highlighting the gentle silver woven through golden tufts and casting a halo around his stooped frame, a silent confession to time's relentless passage. Though his body moved more slowly now, the flame flickered tentatively behind his somber eyes, yearning for rekindling. Outside, the suburban street carried the muted sounds of a waking town, the distant murmur of children's laughter from the park, the mechanical hum of a neighbor's morning lawnmower, the soft twitter of birds weaving through early branches. Yet within the hospital walls, time moved differently, slower, heavier, a sanctuary for souls forgotten as easily as they aged. Max's gaze fell on the faded red collar around his neck, its worn leather frayed but firmly clasped. The collar was his silent badge of honor, yet also a relic of a past filled with applause now vanished into dusty corners of memory. He shuffled forward with hesitant steps, the weight of hips and knees a dull ache beneath his fluffy coat. The old diary lay in a sun-drenched patch near the windowsill, its pages yellowed and ragged. Max's nose twitched as the familiar scent of leather, ink, and age beckoned to him like a compass pointing towards forgotten truths. With slow determination, he nudged the diary gently with his snout, flipping the cover open. The faint rustle of pages stirred memories that woke something low and urgent in his chest. "Max!" The sharp voice of a nurse echoed down the corridor, pulling at the thread of the quiet moment. He turned reluctantly, diary still clasped gently in his teeth, as footsteps approached, frantic and familiar. "Easy, boy," the nurse said softly, kneeling beside him, her eyes kinder than they had been in weeks. "You can't keep running from them." Max's tail gave the barest wag, a flicker of trust amid a reservoir of doubt. He licked her hand in a tentative gesture, the small act of connection and anchor in the shifting tide of neglect. Together, they moved through the corridors, Max's paws tapping softly against the linoleum, the rustle of his collar punctuating the silence. Whispers came from the nursing staff. "That dog again." "The forgotten hero," voices coated with pity or indifference. Yet to Max, those murmurs were the fading echo of a forgotten song he yearned to sing again. They reached a quiet wing, where a small group of patients watched as Max settled near the window. The setting sun streamed in golden, illuminating dust particles that danced lazily in a moment of fragile beauty amidst the grayscale days. A frail elderly woman reached out, her fingers trembling as they brushed Max's fur. Her eyes met his with a spark of recognition, a flicker of gratitude that mirrored the light around them. "Thank you," she whispered. Max rested his head gently on her lap, a slow, hopeful rhythm returning to his breath. But as night began to draw its curtain, the diary slipped from Max's grasp, pages fluttering open to reveal a poignant entry hinting at a buried heroism, an untold story waiting to be unveiled. In the quiet swell of darkness, the weight of forgotten glory pressed against Max's heart, a call to rise, to remember, to reclaim. And somewhere beyond the hospital walls, the town slept unaware of the stirring tale about to awaken among its quiet streets. The story was far from over. The days crept heavily into nights, their passage marked only by the reluctant creak of the hospital's aging walls and the rhythm of Max's measured steps as he navigated the sterile corridors. The diary, weighted with dust and unspoken stories, nestled beneath his paws, its presence both a comfort and a burden. Max's slow, somber eyes betrayed a mingling of hope and fear, flickers of past valor intertwined with the aching uncertainty of forgotten relevance. Nurses whispered behind his back, their voices layered with skepticism and impatience. "Old dogs chasing shadows," one said, brushing past without a glance. Yet, In the quiet spaces between hurried footsteps and clipped conversation, Max pressed on, driven by a flickering ember of purpose. His worn red collar caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through the high hospital windows, a stubborn beacon amid creeping neglect. One afternoon, as he trod the familiar route, a young nurse named Clara paused, her gaze softening. "Max," she murmured, kneeling to stroke his faded fur, "you've got more fight in you than most." Her voice was a balm, fragile but sincere. For a moment, the heavy cloak of invisibility lifted. He leaned into the touch, a quiet exchange bridging the gulf between past and present. But shadows loomed. The family lawyer, a figure draped in cold formality, prowled the halls like a specter, his watchful eyes casting unspoken threats. His presence chilled the hospital air, and whispered warnings flickered into Max's ears through hurried staff conversations. "That dog stirred up old ghosts," muttered one nurse. Max's steps faltered but did not cease. Driven by instinct and the stirring of memories encoded in the diary's fragile pages, he returned night after night to the sunlit window overlooking the hospital garden place that whispered with light and the faint scent of renewal. One evening, as Lenora, an elderly patient with fading eyesight, smiled faintly and spoke to him in a breathy voice, Max felt the flicker of connection, the pulse of lost stories finding footholds. "You were a hero once," she said, eyes glistening. "Don't let the world forget who you are." The words sowed a fragile seed of strength, but the path remained jagged. A sudden scolding from the head nurse forced Max to retreat hurriedly, the diary slipping from his grasp and landing open at a poignant passage. In the silence of forgotten days, truth waits patiently for those brave enough to listen. Max's heart pounded as he reclaimed the diary, retreating into the hospital's shadowed corridors. The call to uncover, to fight back, burned fiercer and yet held the bitter salt of solitude and resistance. One night, a scurrying noise led Max to a hidden corner of the hospital basement. There, behind a loose panel, he detected the faint scent of something long buried. His paw pressed lightly against the wall, a tentative key to untold secrets. Suddenly, footsteps approached, urgent and unkind. Max dashed away, diary clenched tightly, heart pounding with the mix of fear and fierce resolve. Outside, the crescent moon hung low, casting silver light over the dormant town as Max's journey deeper into forgotten truths intensified, each step a battle against erasure and for redemption. The red collar gleamed faintly in the moonlight, a beacon in the still night, a symbol not only of past heroism but of the fragile, unyielding hope that his story was far from over. The city slept, unaware of the whispers rising from its heart, the quiet quest of a forgotten hero weaving through shadows toward a reckoning yet to come. The hospital hallways, usually humming with muted conversations and the shuffle of footsteps, felt oppressively silent as Max gripped the tattered diary gently between his teeth. Each step echoed through the still corridors, a soft sound against the thick carpet footfalls weighed down by years of forgotten purpose and creeping doubt. The worn red collar around his neck caught the dull glow of the overhead lights, its once vibrant hue now faded but still fierce, much like the spirit flickering within him. Max's pause slowed as he reached a corner near the nurses' station, a place where whispers had spilled into lingering glances and half-seen shadows. The diary's pages fluttered in the faint draft, a fragile breath of stories untold, memories paused in time. As he glanced over his shoulder, the intense stare of the head nurse met his gaze with unyielding disapproval. "Max, no," she murmured, voice low but sharp. "You're not needed here anymore." The words slashed deeper than any physical reprimand. Max lowered his head, the warmth of past accolades drained by the cold current of neglect. But nestled within the diary, a revealing entry caught his eye, jutting out from the worn pages like a luminous beacon amidst the shadows of faded ink. The script was trembling but certain, chronicling moments of bravery no one had forgotten but society had let slip quietly into the fold of faded legend. Max pawed the pages softly, breathing in the scent of old paper and quiet valor. The diary told stories of rescue, of love, and of loyalty that transcended time, but also spoke of a hidden betrayal of a friend who had vanished under mysterious circumstances, and whispers that the dwindling respect Max received was the shadow cast by forgotten sacrifice. The hospital's lights flickered overhead, casting shifting patterns of light and dark, a visual echo of the conflict surging through Max's heart. He understood now the silent chasm between the honor he carried and the cold indifference around him. The weight of invisibility was not just time's cruel hand, but a deliberate forgetting, a betrayal that threatened to sever his story from the present. A soft whimper escaped Hema, sound not of weakness but of profound awakening. The diary, the collar, the sunlit hospital window beyond the ward all spoke to him with renewed urgency. It was not merely about reclaiming past glory but about revealing truths silenced by complacency. Suddenly, footsteps approached Brisklive, nurse who had shown him fleeting kindness earlier. Her eyes widened in surprise as she noticed the diary, the solemn look in Max's gaze, the unspoken depths of a story yearning to surface. "Max," she whispered, kneeling beside him, "there's more here than anyone realized. We have to tell the others." Max nuzzled her hand, a subtle pact forming, a rekindling of hope fueled by the fragile alliance of trust. But the moment was shattered by a harsh voice nearby. The head nurse approached swiftly, her expression grim. "Enough," she snapped. "This ends now." Max growled softly, protective and resolute, standing tall despite the weariness that threatened to overtake his limbs. The diary slipped from his grasp, pages catching the light as they splayed open to reveal a cryptic Passagian entry listing a name tied to a recent disappearance that sent ripples through the hospital and beyond. The room seemed to freeze, the weight of revelation pressing heavy. Max's eyes locked on the passage, understanding dawning in full glare. This was no longer just a tale of forgotten heroism. It was a call to justice. And as the hospital's sterile walls seemed to close around him, a new chapter was being written, one where Max was no longer invisible but central to a truth that demanded to be heard. The diary's pages fluttered wildly one last time, a whispered promise riding on the breath of change. Max, steadied by the weight of purpose, took a slow, deliberate step forward into a silent but looming storm. The fight for recognition and redemption had only just begun. Rain drizzled relentlessly against the hospital's tall, narrow windows, a steady pattering that harmonized with Max's slow, dragging steps through the empty corridor. The once invigorated chase for forgotten truths, the sparks of hope kindled by the tattered diary, now seemed swallowed by an oppressive tide of silence and neglect. His once luminous eyes, mirrors to a soul forged in valor, were dulled and distant, clouded by the ache of invisibility and shadow. The fluorescent lights above flickered erratically, casting a tired glow over faded linoleum floors and cold walls tinged with faded pastel blues. Behind the glass panes of the patients' rooms, shadows shifted like ghosts, reflections of lives lived and fading hopes lost to the steady passage of time. Max's broad chest rose and fell in shallow rhythm as his heavy paws sank into the worn carpet, their rhythmic thud a muted testament to endurance, yet weighed by exhaustion. He reached a small sunlit nook by the window where the diary now lay closed, dust gathering on its brittle cover. The light streamed in fragmented bursts, creating a lattice of warmth that seemed, paradoxically, too distant to touch. Max lowered himself slowly beside it, his breathing slow, a soft whimper barely breaking the heavy air. His voice, long silent, escaped in a hoarse murmur. "Who am I now?" The hospital corridor seemed to stretch infinitely, walls fading into shadows, a labyrinth of forgotten memories and unspoken regrets. Outside, the relentless rain scattered puddles that rippled endlessly, echoing a world unraveling with every tremulous step he took. Max's finger-roughened muzzle brushed the diary's edges, tracing the wear like wounds unopened. The red of his collar was a faded ember, its color bleeding into the muted tones of decay and passing time. It was a relic holding stories of bravery and love, yet felt more a chain binding him to a past slipping swiftly away. The quiet was shattered briefly as footsteps approached, stern voices exchanged averted glances. The hospital staff moved with practiced indifference, the once compassionate eyes hardened into mirrors of routine and neglect. Max recoiled, his tail dipping low, a wounded sentinel fading beneath the weight of disregard. The heavy silence returned, pressing down with palpable force. Max's form sagged, muscles folding into themselves, a breath caught in his chest, surrender whispered between ragged inhales. A flicker of movement caught his gazea leaf, wilting and brittle, pressed lightly against the window's glass. The fragile cycle of life echoed in its stillness, something once vibrant now fading, yet stubbornly clinging to existence. As the rain blurred the world beyond the sterile glass, Max closed his eyes, the loneliness wrapping around him like the softest, coldest shroud. The line between being and becoming blurred, unmoored from memory, from love, from the essence that had once defined him. The diary, the red collar, the fleeting light spilling in from the hospital window symbols now fractured across the vast chasm of loss. And somewhere, in the deep relentless quiet of his heart, the echoes of a name whispered faintly forgotten, yet aching to be remembered. The night thickened. The world stilled. Max remained Dan, ancient guardian, fading into shadow, the slow unraveling of a hero nearly lost. The hospital corridors stretched endlessly, swallowed by an unyielding twilight. Each footstep Max took echoed hollowly against the sterile tiles, a sound both familiar and alien in its emptiness. His heavy paws dragged slower now as the weight of rejection pressed down harder than ever, a suffocating shroud turning the very air cold and brittle. Outside, the wind carried the mournful wail of distant sirens, their cry stretching across the muted, desolate streets like a dirge for forgotten heroes. The sky beyond the hospital window was a relentless gray, thick with storms yet to break, mirroring the turmoil seeping into Max's core. He paused by the sunlit window of a patient's room, where golden beams scattered faint, hopeful pools across the floor. Yet the warmth failed to reach him. His fur, once radiant, seemed to absorb shadow, and the vibrant red of his collar had faded to the color of rust and regret. His breath formed thin, sorrowful clouds that lingered before fading into nothingness, just like the echoes of his past valor. The tattered diary, clutched in his trembling jaws, felt heavier than ever, a relic burdened not by age, but by the weight of memories too painful to bear. Its pages whispered quietly in the draft, tales of heroism now drowned by years of silence. Max's ears flattened as distant voices approached, the scolding tone of the caretakers, sharp and unyielding, slicing through the fragile quiet. He dropped the diary, its pages scattering like fallen leaves, and retreated as shadow, a silent specter cast out of warmer days. He found refuge in a vacant corridor, walls towering cold and indifferent, stained with the passage of time and neglect. The faint drip of leaking pipes marked time in agonizing rhythm, a slow heartbeat of decay echoing the fragmentation inside him. A solitary ray of fading light pierced a crack in a distant doorframe, falling upon a lone leaf resting in the dust, a fragile, withered thing, its veins stark against the dimness. It trembled as if with a life of its own, yet was still bound to the floor, unable to soar. Max shifted beside it, the symbolism a cruel reflection of his soul, once vibrant spirit, now wilted, tethered by fear and agony. His eyes, wet and heavy, traced the stillness around him, the silence swelling until it seemed as vast and endless as the world without. There was no escape from the desolation, no balm to soothe the inexorable loss. His silhouette hunched, merging with the shadows until there was only one breath, one heartbeat, suspended in the void, a fragile ghost waiting to dissolve into the night. And the world outside, indifferent and relentless, waited. Max remained alone, broken, and on the precipice of fading away entirely. The night hung dense and silent around Max as he lay curled beneath the hospital room window, the faint remnants of daylight surrendering to a creeping dusk. His breath came slow and unsteady, a soft, rhythmic echo against the muffled sounds of distant life, a world that felt simultaneously close and unreachable. The old diary rested beside him, its tattered pages whispering secrets long buried but no longer silent. The fragile light from the sinking sun stretched across the worn floorboards, tracing patterns that flickered with the slow sway of dust motes suspended in the warmth. Max lifted his head slightly, amber eyes catching the glow, drawn instinctively to the almost imperceptible shimmer of hope amidst the surrounding shadows. He lifted a paw, gentle and hesitant, towards the diary. As his claw brushed a faded phrase, a soft murmur of memories rippled within the echoes of past valor, unspoken stories of courage and loyalty now reawakening. The red collar, worn and faded, lay heavy on his neck. It seemed to pulse with a quiet heartbeat, tethering him to a legacy both cherished and forgotten. In the stillness, a gentle creak stirred the room, a book slipping from a shelf, its pages fluttering open like a bird's wings trembling with flight. Max's ears pricked, the sound a fragile summons in the enveloping gloom. His eyes glistened with dawning resolve, a slow, deliberate motion stirring the embers of his fading spirit. A voice, faint as a breeze yet clear, echoed in his mind. The light endures beyond the darkest night. A memory, a whispered promise. Max slowly rose, each movement measured but filled with a quiet determination that belied his weary body. The diary, now a symbol of salvation, was retrieved with reverence as he made his way towards the door, his paws finding strength with every step. Beyond the window, the hospital grounds breathed in the embryonic embrace of night, the lighthouse in the distance casting a steady, guiding beacon, its light a steadfast counterpoint to the gathering darkness. Max paused at the threshold, the weight of years pressing yet no longer overwhelming. His gaze lifted to the glowing window, the radiance a silent benediction and an invitation. In that fragile quietude, Max whispered into the night a vow unspoken but fiercely held: "I will find the light again." And as the first stars blinked into existence overhead, the shadows that had clung so tightly began to loosen, weaving back into the tapestry of stories yet to be told. The journey was far from over, but the smallest spark of hope glimmered fragile, yet unyielding, a beacon in the enveloping dark. The first golden rays of dawn spilled like molten silk through the cracks of the hospital's worn windowpane, weaving soft light over dust motes that shimmered in the stillness. Max lay curled near the threshold of a quiet room, the faded red collar resting heavily against his neck. His eyes, once clouded with the weight of invisibility, slowly lifted toward the warming light as if sensing a silent promise threaded within its glow. The air seemed to exhale around him, the oppressive silence gently yielding to the stirring breath of a new day. Outside, the world beyond the hospital's walls was awash with muted colors, the tender pinks casting long, delicate shadows on aged roofs, the soft hum of distant birdsong threading through the awakening streets, all signifying a fragile rebirth. Max shifted slowly, his aged paws pressing softly on the worn floorboards. Each movement spoke of tentative strength reclaimed. The diary, once a burden, now lay closed beside him, its ragged edges lined with tales of valor and the whispered legacy of a past still waiting to unfold fully. The sunlight traced patterns on the floor, soft arcs of warmth that embraced the space between shadow and clarity. Through the window, leaves fluttered gently in the morning breeze, their rustling a tender hymn to resilience, to life persisting beyond brittle time. Max's gaze met the light's arc. A subtle flicker of life stirred deep within his chest, a quiet heartbeat rising from the ashes of neglect. His breath steadied, a slow cadence that rippled outward, breaking the long-held hold of despair. A bright-eyed nurse entered the room, her footsteps light, her smile something like understanding. She knelt without hesitation, her hand reaching out with gentle purpose to rest on Max's grizzled head. "Good morning, old friend," she murmured, her voice a soothing thread weaving through the hospital's shadows. Max's tail gave a tentative wag, that delicate gesture a bridge spanning loss and connection. The nurse's eyes lingered on the red collar, now fading but unbroken, a symbol of past glory and enduring loyalty. Together, they lingered in the room, the nurse's presence a balm that softened years of silence. The sun climbed higher, casting golden waves that illuminated the worn pages of the diary, hinting at stories still alive beneath fragile bindings. The gentle tick of a nearby clock marked time's slow march as Max, perhaps for the first time in many moons, sensed the stirring of purpose rekindled, a light not yet blazing but strong enough to pierce the dim. He rose carefully, each step measured, then paused before the window, eyes fixed on the distant silhouette of the town's iconic lighthouse. Bathed in warm sunlight, its beams swept steadily across the horizon, a sentinel of hope and unyielding watchfulness. In that moment, Max breathed deeply, the weight that once bent him now lifted slightly, as if the looming shadows were beginning to recede. A soft whimper escaped his lips, not of sorrow but of cautious optimism. Maybe, he thought, maybe there is still a place for me in this world. The diary lay open, its pages fluttering as if stirred by a gentle breath, a silent invitation to turn towards the stories yet told. Max's eyes glimmered with fragile resolve, the first quiet step toward awakening, toward transformation. And beyond the hospital walls, the sun painted the sky anew, promising that even the longest night yields to dawn. The soft glow of morning filtered through the hospital window, casting long, warm beams that stretched across the quiet room where Max padded with newfound purpose. The faded red collar that draped his neck caught the afternoon sun like a banner, its worn texture made vibrant again by the light and by the spirit it symbolized. The diary, once just a whisper of forgotten stories, now lay in his possession as a sacred vessel of truth and memory. Max moved with more confidence, his gait steady though aged, as he navigated the quiet halls with a sense of intention that had been absent for too long. The sound of his paws on the polished floor echoed faintly, a steady rhythm underlining the slow rebuilding of a forgotten legacy. Voices drifted softly from a nearby nurse's station, punctuated by the murmur of footsteps and subdued laughter, a world alive yet distant from the quiet resolve swelling within Max's chest. He approached the sunlit window where forgotten memories and hope met in golden harmony. As the light wrapped around him, a gentle warmth blossomed beneath his fur, fueling a spark of courage to pierce the lingering shadows. From the corner of the room, Clara, the young nurse who had shown kindness earlier, watched him with a smile touching her lips. Her eyes held new respect, a recognition born from witnessing Max's small renaissance. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered gently, stepping forward to rest a soft hand on his head. Her touch was a balm, bridging past and present. Max's tail gave a slow, deliberate wag, a silent vow renewed. Through the window, the town beyond began to stir, life pulsing in sun-dappled streets and swaying trees, promising connection and purpose. Suddenly, the diary shifted beneath his paw, a gust from an open door fluttering its fragile pages. Max's gaze lifted to a poignant entry now revealed. A tale of sacrifice, loyalty, and a hidden act of heroism long overshadowed by time's neglect. Words etched in faded ink resonated deeply, filling the room with an electric charge of revelation. A faint rustling came from the nurse's station as a staff member discovered the diary left open, brows furrowed in curiosity. The air tightened with expectancy, an unspoken tension tightening the moment. Max rose to his full height, eyes blazing with renewed fire. His heartbeat echoed the fierce determination igniting within a resolve to reclaim his story and rewrite the narrative of erasure. The worn collar caught the sunlight anew, shining resilient amid the soft shadows, a token not just of past glory but of the unyielding spirit now rising. As the afternoon deepened, Max and Clara moved together toward a quiet wing of the hospital, the diary held solemn between them, a key not only to forgotten tales but to uncharted paths of justice and remembrance. In that quiet corridor, beneath a modest burst of sunlight streaming like a benediction through the window, an unspoken truth shimmered. The battle for recognition had only just begun, yet in every step lay the promise of dawn breaking through the night. Max paused, Head high, tail poised with tentative pride, the soft light of revelation casting long shadows that fled before the steady glow. And beyond the worn walls, the town stirred quietly, waiting for the hero to rise. The sun poured through the hospital room window, filling the space with a warm, golden light that banished the lingering shadows of doubt. Max stood tall in the center of the room, his golden fur luminous, every strand catching the sunlight like threads of fire. His once worn and faded red collar now gleamed with a vividness that echoed the rekindled spirit within Hema, symbol reborn from the ashes of neglect and forgotten valor. Around him, the atmosphere felt charged with a silent power, the weight of years of invisibility and despair dissolving beneath the radiance of truth and redemption. The diary lay open on the table, its fragile, time-worn pages illuminated as though awakened by the very energy pulsing in the room. Max's kind eyes, once shadowed by melancholy, now shone with fierce clarity and quiet confidence. The battle for acknowledgement, the struggle to reclaim a rightful place in the tapestry of stories, had transformed him. No longer was he a relic of a forgotten past but a living testament to courage, loyalty, and the power of resilience. A soft rustle of footsteps approached, and Clarith Nurse, who had stood steadfast by his side, entered with a gentle smile that spoke of shared triumph and silent understanding. She knelt beside Max, her hand resting tenderly on his head. "You've carried us all through the dark," she whispered, her voice trembling with reverence. "Now it's time they all see." Max responded with a steady, assuring gaze, as if promising that the truth would echo far beyond these sterile walls. The red collar gleamed anew, a blazing beacon of past heroism and the unwavering loyalty that had never truly faded. Outside the window, the town lay bathed in the soft hues of early dusk, the streets alive with anticipation as neighbors gathered, whispers of rediscovered heroism fluttering through the air. The vintage charm of the old houses and parks, once overlooked, now seemed vibrant, aglow with the collective breath of recognition and hope. Max stepped towards the open window, the sunlight cradling him like a sacred mantle. His silhouette stretched tall and proud against the fading light, embodying the very essence of redemption, a guardian reawakened, a hero reborn. In that luminous embrace, Max spoke softly, a voice stronger than words, filled with unshakable purpose. "I was never lost. I was always here." The gentle breeze carried his vow through the town streets, weaving through the hearts of those who had forgotten, reminding them of the loyalty and bravery hidden in their midst. As evening deepened, the first snowflakes began to fall, soft, silent, and pure, blanketing the world in a serene white that mirrored the peace settling in Max's soul. The town's lights flickered on one by one, illumining faces filled with newfound respect and gratitude. Max stood still, his breath mingling with the snowfall, eyes reflecting the gentle glow of lanterns and street lamps, a sentinel watching over a community rediscovering its hero. The red collar around his neck sparkled in the falling snow, no longer worn and forgotten but polished and proud, a radiant emblem of honor reclaimed. And as the night wove a quiet symphony of hope and remembrance, Max remained at the heart of it all, strong, cherished, and eternally ready to guide those who might yet wander lost. The story of redemption had come full circle, its final image a peaceful tableau of light, loyalty, and lasting legacy. As the snow fell softly, cloaking the town in a serene white blanket, Emma stepped quietly onto the weathered porch of the community hall. The gentle hush of the early morning wrapped around her like an old, familiar shawl, comforting and fragile. The air was crisp, each breath a gentle exhalation that seemed to carry away lingering doubts and sorrow. She paused before a small, modest plaque inscribed with her name and a date, her journey, her transformation, etched into history now intertwined with her town's story. Her hand rested on the polished surface, fingers trailing thoughtfully, her eyes reflected a calm that had long eluded her, like the surface of a still lake after stormy waves. Inside, the hall brimmed with a quiet mixture of expectant hope and hesitant memory. Faces old and new gathered as if summoned by an unspoken agreement, a collective remembering. The aroma of fresh-baked bread mingled with the scent of blooming jasmine, weaving a tapestry of peace and renewal. Max trotted in, his coat shining softly, the newly polished collar gleaming like a badge of honor. Despite his age, his tail wagged slowly yet unreservedly, a gentle declaration of purpose fulfilled. He moved with a dignity that belied his years, every step a testament to the hero he had become, hidden for so long but never extinguished. Emma watched him, her heart swelling with quiet pride. Her hands clasped softly in front of her, she took a deep, steadying breath and allowed herself a moment of stillness. The struggles, the betrayals, the moments of despair all blurred into a distant, albeit vivid, memory in the warm glow of this morning. She saw the town's faces turn toward him, recognition dawning in their eyes. Once forgotten, once dismissed, Max now stood as a symbol, a silent, steadfast reminder that heroism isn't measured by applause but by quiet acts that ripple through time. A gentle wind sighed through open windows, rustling the curtains and carrying the faintest whisper of hope across the gathering. Emma's gaze lifted to the sky-pale blue with streaks of gold. She understood now that every shadow, every loss, and every tear had shaped her strength. With a soft smile, she stepped forward, her body language unhurried, accepting, full of infinite gentle resolve. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was calm yet full of quiet conviction. We all carry stories that deserve to be heard. Some silent, some loud. But today, we remember not just as a tale of danger and despair, but as a testament to resilience and redemption. The crowd listened, faces softly illuminated by the rising sun, a collective breath held in the cathedral of hope. Max's collar glinted again, a celestial crown in the dawn's early light, a crown he had earned through loyalty and love, unsung yet enduring. And as the first snowflakes drifted lazily from the gray skies, a gentle hush settled, a moment suspended in time, a serene acknowledgement that even the deepest wounds can find peace when met with kindness and truth. The town stood quietly, in silent reverence, as Emma's gaze softened into a mirror of the sky, a reflection of a soul finally at peace, embracing the quiet beauty of a new dawn. The snow continued to drift softly, blanketing the town in a gentle, hushed serenity. Emma stood on the hill overlooking the village square, her gaze fixed on the tiny figures gathered below, each face illuminated by flickering lanterns. Her heart was a quiet storm of reflection, a delicate harmony of relief and bittersweet acknowledgement. The past, once shrouded in darkness, was now unveiled layer by layer, and with it, a profound sense of peace settled deep within her. The old, polished collar rested comfortably around Max's neck, a tangible symbol of the hero he had once been and the hero he had become, again recognized at last, not for the moments of glory long past, but for the steadfast loyalty, love, and resilience etched into the quiet corners of his soul. His eyes, bright and steady, communicated a silent forgiveness, a recognition that healing was not forgetting but embracing. In the golden glow of the gathered lanterns, the townspeople shared stories of courage, of sacrifice, of faded fears and newfound trust. Children ran freely, their laughter mingling with the gentle hush of falling snow, an innocent chorus celebrating a hero's return. Emma's hands, once trembling with doubt, now rested softly in her lap, fingers intertwined as if anchoring herself to this moment of impossible grace. Across her, Max lifted his head in a slow, proud motion. His gaze met hers in a moment suspended beyond words in spoken dialogue of forgiveness and enduring bond. Her eyes glistened with tears, but these were tears of release, of a story finally written in light instead of shadow. The snowy night stretched on, a silent canvas for reconciliation. The distant lighthouse beam swept steadily across the sky, a faithful guardian illuminating the quiet celebration. In its unwavering march, Emma saw her own journey reflected, a series of struggles, setbacks, and finally, acceptance. She wrapped her coat tighter and took a slow, deliberate step forward, heading toward Max. Her hand reached out, gentle and reverent, to rest on his golden fur, a simple act of love and acknowledgement of the past's wounds healing. "You were always the hero," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. "And now, I see it, too." Max's tail wagged slowly, an unhurried, profound responsian act of grace that carried beyond words, beyond the echoes of pain. The town around them shimmered in the cold but hopeful dawn, each moment a testament to resilience, redemption, and the infinite capacity for renewal. In that lingering silence, beneath the soft snowfall, a breathtaking peace settled, the gentle testament that even the deepest scars can be transformed into a story worth telling, a legacy not lost but rediscovered in love. The snow had settled quietly over the village, transforming the world into a shimmering white canvas that reflected a new beginning. Max, now wearied but luminous with belonging, stood atop the gentle slope overlooking the town square. His coat, polished and gleaming under the soft winter light, caught the last golden rays of the setting sun, each step deliberate, every movement echoing a silent testament to resilience and healing. In the gathering twilight, the townspeople moved slowly around him, their faces touched with reverence. The once forgotten hero, revered in whispers and now celebrated openly, exuded a quiet dignity. The worn collar, polished anew, glinted softly, a crown of loyalty, love, and unyielding spirit. That collar had once symbolized a hero's glory, and now it embodied the profound truth: the hero was never lost, only waiting to be remembered. Across the square, the old, battered diary lay gently on a pedestal, its pages fluttered softly by the breeze, a silent relic of stories long buried beneath the sands of neglect. The open pages displayed a poignant entry, the words echoing through the still air, their ink faded but imbued with eternal truth. In the silence of forgotten days, the heart's true hero emerges not in grand gestures, but in quiet acts of loyalty that echo through eternity. The gentle snowfall began, each flake a delicate whisper, a moment of serenity layered into the tapestry of a life redeemed. Max lifted a paw, not out of weakness but as an act of memory, an offering of gratitude to the universe that had finally returned his voice, his purpose, his story. He paused, breathing deeply, the cold air filling his lungs with renewed hope. The world around him softened, the murmur of voices, the flicker of lanterns, the gentle rhythm of falling snow, a lullaby for the soul that had fought so fiercely to be seen. In that tranquil silence, Max's gaze lifted towards the vast, star-studded sky, infinite universe echoing the endless potential for peace and renewal. The town, bathed in the calm glow of hope, mirrored his internal awakening. The shadows of past betrayals and fading memories dissolved into the quiet expanse. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing the serene Tableauth hero now crowned by humility, surrounded by a community that finally saw not just the dog, but the legend of loyalty and love he embodied. The collar, polished and radiant, gleamed brighter than ever, a testament to sacrifice and resilience. As the screen softened into a silent, dissolving light, the final image lingered, a peaceful tableau of Max standing proudly under the falling snow, a silent guardian wrapped in the gentle hush of a world at last embracing its quiet hero. What hidden stories lie around us every day? Share your thoughts below.